Hello my lovely humans, welcome back to my channel. I'm FCA, and as a law enthusiast, I was following the Karen Read trial. I will link to that playlist below, letting you know that I am an outside observer, not a professional in the things, for transparency's sake. But let's talk about the aftermath of the Karen Read trial verdict. Karen Read, what do you mean? There was a verdict. She was found not guilty of the serious offenses. She got charged with an OVI, DUI, OUI, whatever they called it, and she's now free to go and live her life, and the only things that she really needs to be worrying about are, you know, the legal aftermath, paperwork, and etc. Yes? Not so much. There has been a major amount of aftermath. Every time I've turned around, I'm getting slapped in the face with new news from all directions. So we're going to break this down into a couple videos. This particular video is going to talk about the aftermath of the officers in the Karen Read trial. Let's get into it. So let's start with man of the hour, Michael Proctor. He's a former trooper who had been fired and dismissed because of an investigation of his behavior that happened from the first Karen Read trial back in 2023. There was an official investigation opened into him from the Massachusetts and Norfolk police stations, and they found him guilty on multiple counts of just improper behavior. He was dismissed from his position. He did an interview recently, and I did watch it. I will link it below. And he says very adamantly that he would not change anything from his investigation when asked. Sir, I'm sorry, you wouldn't change anything about your behavior. You watched the trial. He was involved in the first trial. He was able to watch that, and he got in trouble. Not only from that, but we'll touch on that, but directly from that. And then he also was able to watch and did watch the second trial. So, sir, you're really gonna look America and Massachusetts residents in the face and say you wouldn't change anything about the investigation? He doesn't have any remorse for what he said in those text messages. I will also link those terrible text messages below that were read in court multiple times. I prefer sending you to the first link about that, which is from the first trial when former Michael Proctor had to read those himself rather than somebody else reading them out loud. But either way, really, he just called them regrettable. The only thing he clearly regrets is getting caught. The only thing he clearly is upset about is that he got held accountable for his actions. He's not sorry he did them. He's sorry he got caught and punished about it. And on top of that, he is appealing it. I'm sorry, who's he, what's it now? Because any job I have ever been dismissed from, and I'm sure some of you have experienced this too, when you get dismissed from a job, that's really the end of that, right? Like, you get dismissed, maybe you can get unemployment, you're miserable and like really on a tight budget for a little while, and you find a new job. Yes, yes. I have never heard of a job where you get dismissed, you get fired, you get let go. Sometimes there's temporary layoffs, but that's a whole different ballgame. Where, oh yeah, I was fired for my bad conduct and rule breaking at my job, on my job, and I'm going to appeal to get it back. But apparently that's something you can do, and that blows my mind. And apparently this is not a new thing. It's new to me. The information's new to me. But yeah, if you get dismissed and fired from police forces of any kind, no matter how badly you effed up, oh yeah, you can appeal and possibly get that job back. They could go, oh, well, don't do it again. Come on back. Take that badge and armed weapon back. We're going to put you back on the force. Like, really, we learned that he is not responsible. Like, you let him go for those reasons. Why are we gonna try and let him back? Like, why is that a possibility for people to get it back? Not just particularly Michael Proctor, but anyone who's been fired from that position. Majority of those people don't get fired for no reason. In fact, it's really hard for them to get fired in the first place. So the fact that it even happened and now you're telling me that they can just get it back? And also want to note, we're going to come back to the fact that it wasn't just the Karen Read trial, his behavior on the case, that he was dismissed. There were a plethora of other things. One of the most notable, in fact, when humans, a common thing that we will do is when we're giving you a list, we usually start with the least important thing and then end on the biggest note. And what the biggest note ended, and I will link this below, it's on the Boston 10 website of the official transcript of his indictment and his problems and stuff. He said, or he didn't say, what was said about him was, Trooper Proctor on July 19th, 2022 did consume alcohol while on duty and not in the performance of duty, and while acting under specific orders from a supervisory member or proper authority. So this means, now if you're wondering, well, what does not in performance of duty mean? Well, this means that sometimes, if you've ever heard of an undercover cop or somebody who's doing some kind of low-key work, if they're sent into a bar or into a restaurant or something like that, having them order a beer or a glass of wine with dinner while they're talking to somebody or observing to blend in with the crowd. So if they are drinking as a ruse or as a part of a way to blend into a crowd, maybe at a concert or something like that, that is allowed. There are perimeters and there are things in place that allow for that. He was not in that capacity at this time. He was just on regular non-performance duty. And he was also acting under the orders of a specific member of authority, which means somebody told him to be doing something important, and he was drinking while doing that. Somebody higher than him was like, hey, here's your stuff, and he was like, glug, glug, glug. It continues to say that this occurred when Trooper Proctor consumed alcoholic beverages while eating dinner on duty and then proceeded to operate his department-issued cruiser. Side note, he was also in uniform. He had his armed piece with him. Let me tell you, we should not be consuming the alcoholic beverages and then being allowed to make decisions with an armed weapon. The action is a direct violation of Article 5.10.4. This is a Class B violation. And he shall A, be terminated, dishonorably discharged. Yeah, you know how you shouldn't be drinking and driving? And we saw in the Karen Read trial that the whole lot of the Boston police, well, not every Boston police officer, but a whole lot of people who were on the Boston police and Canton cops were all just zooming around after imbibing. His other things that were involved were also between January 29th, 2022 to August 17th of 2022 and June 9th of 2022. He had various issues where he failed to take appropriate action, and he didn't fail to conform for the work standards established for the member's rank, title, position, and did so on the occasion of crime and disorder and other condition deserving of a state police investigator as a homicide investigator. The first one was he sent derogatory, defamatory, disparaging, and otherwise inappropriate text messages about a suspect to the individuals. It was also that the second one is that he provided sensitive and or confidential information about a homicide victim, potential witness, or potential investigative steps to non-law enforcement personnel. So let us check that out. So those are the ones directly related to Karen Read's investigation. Now, he was in charge of other investigations during that time period. It's not like you get one case and then you never work another homicide case again or any other case. But the text messages were directly from her. And again, this is a man who says that he doesn't regret that happening. He regrets that he got caught. He doesn't regret the things he said. He doesn't care that he said defamatory, derogatory things about her body, that he was looking for nudes, stuff about her medical conditions. None of that's relevant to him in his mind. And there's also you really shouldn't be telling people, you take a whole oath. There's a whole protocol thing that you do where you can't be just telling him, her, and whoever about stuff going on in your case that's not public information. When stuff gets publicly released, then you can tell people a little bit more. All things the same, the third charge that he was also put with was that when Trooper Proctor, while assigned to the lead investigator of homicide investigation, through his inappropriate conduct and unprofessional conduct, created an image that he was biased in his dealings with a homicide suspect and or otherwise brought himself and the Massachusetts State Police into disrepute. This action is a direct violation of Article 5.8.2. So this is that because he was saying a bunch of this stuff that I had just mentioned less than 24 hours into the investigation. I believe it was said that it was like 12 to 14 hours into the investigation, depending on which particular text set you look at. So he's saying this stuff, not saying anything about, we're checking out some other people, but she's got the strongest lead, which, he shouldn't be saying anyway, but because he's directly targeting her, saying all this horrible stuff about her, and clearly going in on her, and he's asked about that in the interview, and he goes, well, she made the most sense. She was our number one. He goes, we don't have the resources. You can't chase every little thing that comes up. You really got to try to focus on one person. Or, you focus on one lead, then if that doesn't pan out, then you go to other ones. But hers panned out, and, I stand by what I said with her. Okay. Which means that he will continue to behave that way in the future. Because, again, I'm very much getting the sense of he's not sorry about anything except getting caught. Which means that when given the chance and opportunity, or if given the chance and opportunity, he will do that again. And not to mention, this is not the first investigation that is of more public nature. If we remember the Birchmore case, I will link where I did a recap of that video below, where he was the lead investigator and also did not do a good enough job by any means in his investigation skills. So I just am under the impression, this is just my opinion, that he is not worthy of getting back this thing because he is not a good person. He is not a good cop. He's not a good investigator. He's just mad that he's an officer who has to take accountability. And I don't know, maybe that's frustrating to him when he sees other cops and troopers, etc., who literally get away with homicide. And he ultimately blames getting sending bad text. It's like, sir, there was a whole bunch of other stuff in your actions that were also wrong. Hit my desk. And also, before I forget to mention, the investigation that was not tied to the Karen Reed trial that I think is the worst of the offenses is the consuming alcohol while driving around on duty with your armed piece and stuff. And that was during the Cape Cod investigation. So, and when it was brought up in the interview, he was like, I would never do that. Bro, you were caught doing it. It was one of the main reasons you were fired. You did do that. But he leads it up to a poor lapse in judgment, is what he directly quoted. What is with all of these cops and their poor lapses of judgment in hindsight? Speaking of, let's talk about Kelly Dever. Kelly Dever was a cop who was a Canton cop who is currently a Boston cop who was at the trial in the defense side, brought on as a hostile witness, which means they were allowed to ask her leading questions, not that she got aggressive. She did get aggressive, but that's not what made her a hostile witness. At first, she just seemed annoyed about being there. If you watch my trial coverage of this, I say the same thing. And then it goes to, oh, you lied to the FBI. In the first Karen Reed trial things, she had reported to the FBI when she was asked about it, because she was working the day the call came in the area where they have monitors, and she was on dispatch duty. And she said that she had seen Ken Berkowitz and federal agent Brian Higgins, in the Sallyport with Karen Reed's SUV for, quote, a wildly long time. Well, then it was brought up that she couldn't have seen that because when she got off work, the SUV was not brought in for a couple hours after she had already left the station, so she could not have seen that. And instead of saying something sensible and reasonable, like I saw them in the Sallyport for a long time, but it clearly wasn't with the SUV, so I don't know what they were doing in there. It just, understanding the timeline, the SUV wasn't there yet. I just kind of must have put that in my head that they were associated with the case and we had Karen Reed's vehicle eventually, so I just thought those two times overlapped and they didn't. So I don't know what they were doing in the Sallyport. They were there for a really long time, but it was before Karen Reed's SUV got there. She didn't say anything like that. Even though that's still kind of, okay, that's a little bit sketchy, saying that, oh yeah, I just got my timeline, I just got a couple things confused, is a lot better than what she actually said, which was that she created a false memory. A false memory. She has been put on the stand dozens of times, according to her. Like maybe a couple dozen. And she says that, and you're telling me that now she makes distorted memories, false memories, and she got really mad at Alan Jackson, one that occasionally, I guess he mispronounced her name. She got really personal about that, and I think that was a distracting tactic, like not on her on a conscious level. I think that she was like, she needed something to distract from where she was in her very poor position. So harping on her last name being mispronounced was a distraction that she hoped would pull everyone else away from the situation. It did not work. It just made her look even worse. But she couldn't remember certain things. She called the FBI back, similar to Jen McCabe. It was like, hey, actually, you remember when I said all of that stuff? Yeah, none of that's true, actually. Yeah, false memory, distorted memory. Yeah, my bad. Bye. And then she claimed that the defense threatened her with perjury. And she said, she goes, because I called the FBI about it after you threatened me with perjury, and it was revealed that when she had a call with the defense, with Karen Reed's defense team, that that they wanted her to say, you know, that she saw them in the Sallyport with the SUV for a long time. But she said that would be a lie, and she made it very convoluted. Again, she could have simply said, I saw them in there, and I thought it was because the SUV was in there, but that those timelines don't overlap. But she didn't say that. She said something crazy. And of course, when you have somebody who is supposed to be an officer of the law, who now just admits or at least claims to make distorted memories and distorted realities because things overlapped in their mind, they can't differentiate what they heard online versus what actually happened or what was in their actual memory. How are you supposed to trust them in any future cases? And Alan Jackson wrote a scathing letter demanding that the commissioner put Dever on a Brady list. So if we've heard of the Brady violation multiple times, this is about, which I believe is either Rule 14 or Rule 17, where a Brady violation is where the prosecution doesn't give information to the defense. They are required to give all evidence over that they have, even if it's detrimental to the prosecution and beneficial to the defense, they are required to turn everything over that they have. And they want one of those things to be for Dever to forever be put on a Brady list in association with the distorted memory that she is irreparably distrusting, that she is not able to be trusted because of her distorted memory. And if she's able to distort her memory in a high-profile homicide case and investigation, how is she supposed to be trusted with any other information coming in for any other cases? There has been argument, I will link below, where people had pointed out, or how it had been pointed out, that that's not true. A lot of people had said they don't understand why her misunderstanding and taking back something that obviously couldn't be true, admitting that it couldn't be true, and then trying to fix it, how that makes her just unable to do her job for the rest of the time. Like, what, nobody's allowed to misremember something? Nobody's allowed to have a, like, just mistake in their memory? People can have mistakes and errors. The way she went about it was wrong, and calling it a false memory that she created is not good for her particular job. You know, this isn't a minor error. She didn't misspell something. She didn't switch some numbers around in the files. She said significant information to the FBI that she then took back as a fake memory that she created. Well, how often does she do that and she just doesn't get cornered for it? On that note, the commissioner for the Boston police denies that he didn't know that she had anything to do with the case. He's not associated with the Karen Read case. He gave a brief little interview, I will send the clip below, where he claims that he never talked to her. He didn't know she was associated or anybody directly associated with the Karen Read trial. I don't know if he's just putting up a front, or if genuinely he didn't ever have a private conversation with her and maybe somebody else did that she's covering up for. Or hey, maybe she just had another false memory. The last person that we're going to talk about is Sergeant Yuri Bukenik. He is the supervising officer for the Karen Read trial. He was one of the people directly above and in charge of Michael Proctor. He had received disciplinary action of losing 3 days of vacation because of being engaged in the derogatory text message thread. But he has further been demoted. He has been transferred out of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, so he's no longer acting as a state trooper, but he has now been transferred to the agency's Division of Standards and Training on temporary duty assignment that became effective at the beginning of the month. So that is what spokesperson Tim McGurk said. I will link this article below as well. But he is having a variety of administrative functions in support of the operations, the daily operations of the division. Which means he went from, he's an investigator, he's telling people what to do, he's supervising big cases, he's getting set up into court, he's looking into evidence, and now he's doing menial desk duty, which is never a fun thing. That is a really big demotion. Most police officers, troopers, and general law enforcement agents do not like to be assigned to desk duty. They want to be out there active and doing their stuff. And it's a really big demotion, and surely comes with a big pay cut. Maybe it's because he got evidence wrong, which I will put the photo here that I had made during that, where he didn't know what shoe he had. And also because when he mentioned that there were other people that could have been looked into, he was just like, no, we didn't go into the house. No, we didn't do that. And also it was that he claimed that the investigation, quote, was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction and one direction only. Which was clearly shown to not be true, when it's like, okay, why didn't you look a little more into Brian Higgins? Why didn't you look a little more into Brian Albert? Since it was like, oh no, he was at the Alberts, well, why was he there to begin with? Why was he in their lawn? There was a glass found. Why didn't we check into this? What about this dog bite with dog in house? Lots of people getting dismissed, discharged, changed around. The commissioner has not mentioned anything further about whether Kelly Dever will actually be put on the Brady list or not. There has been no conclusion on today, the July 17th, 2025, as to whether Michael Proctor has been able to meet his appeal or not. Here's hoping not. We don't need any more corrupt cops. There's a whole bunch of them who haven't been caught, who are still running around. We don't need an absolutely definitively known one back. And Bukenik just seemed like, he didn't seem like a bad guy. He honestly just seemed like he was trying to be a good cop, but he was also trying to be a good buddy, and that took place over his supervisor duties. So I think that man was just caught in crosshairs he was not ready for publicly. But also, like, when you're telling your supervisor inappropriate stuff like that and they're thumbsing it up and being encouraging, well, how many other things are being let slide or that are considered okay? So that is what's happening with the police, and we will check in later with other things happening in the Karen Reid trial. Bye, my lovely humans. All links below.